And I'm working. Oh, there you go. Good call. No, there we go. And I'm working here alongside Lance Jeffers, who's the ThousandEyes Solutions engineer. So I will go ahead and share my screen, um, and we can get started. Can you guys see this all right? Okay, perfect. So what I have on the agenda for today is I have maybe I think about 8 slides that I'll go through that just kind of gives an overview of what ThousandEyes is, how you can use it in your environment, and kind of some of those main use cases that we see with our other customers. And then I'll pass it over to Lance, and he will do a little bit more of that technical deep dive and talk about some of the specific requirements and tests that all of you guys will be very interested in. So without further ado, I will kick it off here. So why is ThousandEyes even relevant, right? What is the purpose of it? What is the challenge that we are trying to solve? And the main thing is that the IT landscape has really fundamentally changed, right? It used to be that everything was at the enterprise perimeter. Applications were in the data center, you had workers in branch offices, and you had tools if any of these things went wrong. But that's really just not the case anymore, right? Applications are becoming much more modular. Everything is moving to the cloud, and as we know, so many workers are remote or either hybrid. And because of this, your networks are everywhere. And as an enterprise, obviously, you need to be able to connect users and applications together over any network. And this causes actually a huge problem because there are massive, massive blind spots that come about when we're looking at this, right? And the problem is the internet, where so much of your traffic runs, is just completely outside of your control and invisible to traditional monitoring tools. Traditional tools often focus on inside the firewall visibility, but the moment that traffic leaves your network, you're totally blind. So, like I mentioned, when a problem occurs, it can be really hard to pinpoint where the issue is and where it's coming from. Could it be, the internet, the cloud, the environment, the application? Is one of your users just working from Starbucks and has poor Wi-Fi? It's so hard to pinpoint what that is. And oftentimes, as the networking teams, you're responsible for these issues, even though you don't own the problem. So this is where ThousandEyes comes into play. ThousandEyes is a digital assurance platform that enables organizations to see, understand, and improve application experiences by monitoring the network and application performance across, like I mentioned, the internet, cloud, and any enterprise environment. ThousandEyes collects multi-layer telemetry data from vantage points that are either globally distributed or that live in your environment, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And they really just offer detailed metrics and real-time visualization of all network paths and outages. And what distinguishes us, kind of like I mentioned before, we're not just monitoring your network, but we're actually extending that visibility across the internet and into the destination network. So the value is we're able to pinpoint where an issue is, even if it's outside of your environment and in say the internet, which you're obviously relying on a day-to-day basis. And ThousandEyes can also alert you of these issues before they're happening. So if a customer is complaining, a user is complaining, you will often know about these before that even happens, which takes a lot of the finger pointing away, which again is one of our main use cases for the network team here. So what are our use cases? There are 3 main ones that we have. First is for your applications, for a better customer digital experience. The second is for your people and your workforce for a better employee digital experience. And the third is your infrastructure for a better enterprise digital experience. First, with your applications, the goal here is really just to see, understand, and improve how customers experience external facing websites. Our software here is able to run tests that mimic real user interactions to ensure that anyone interacting with either your website or applications have that seamless experience. The second is people, and the overall goal here is really to ensure that employees experience seamless connectivity and high performance for anything that they're doing, whether on-prem or in the cloud, and especially with any type of collaboration tools that we're seeing everyone using day to day, and with hybrid workers as well. The third use case is for your infrastructure or your enterprise. And the goal here is really just to optimize your digital supply chain. There's so many tools, so many applications, so many different networks that everyone is using on a day-to-day basis. And we want to make sure that all of these are running smoothly. So how does this specifically work? There are three main, what we call agents, that align with our three main use cases here. So we'll kind of go in order as we did before. The first one is for this customer digital experience. And here we have what we call our cloud agents. And these agents are globally distributed vantage points throughout the internet that are hosted by us, by ThousandEyes. And they perform synthetic tests on a regular schedule to simulate real user transactions and traffic patterns. So these tests, like I mentioned, can ensure that anyone, when they're outside of your organization and they're interacting with your external facing resources, they're able to do so without disruption. The second use case we have for the workforce digital experience aligns to our endpoint agents. And these agents are deployed on specific devices. So think employee laptops, desktops, mobile devices, or even Zebra scanners we've seen. And these agents monitor connectivity and performance from wherever the device is located. So if your workforce, say it's in your home office, we're monitoring that connection. If it's a Zebra scanner on a manufacturing floor, we're monitoring from wherever that is moving and wherever that is going. And we're able to see the local environment, local ISP, VPN, and application performance, all of those things in context. A use case that we see a lot of the times here for the workforce in specific, with those endpoint agents, we do what we call dynamic testing. And so with all of these agents, we also run specific tests, which Lance will talk about a little bit later. But one that I want to highlight here is dynamic testing. So this turns on whenever a user is interacting with a collaboration tool. So on a meeting like this, if I had an endpoint agent on my laptop, the second I joined a meeting, it would continuously start monitoring to make sure that I have that seamless experience. And as the network team, you would be able to see, if I were having a poor experience, why that's happening and where exactly in that network path it's happening. So this is so useful. Oftentimes, we see people complaining of, oh, I can't get on a Teams meeting, WebEx meeting, whatever it may be. This is a really big use case for that endpoint specifically. Third use case, moving on, is our enterprise digital experience, and this aligns with our enterprise agent. And these agents are deployed in corporate data centers, branch offices, or cloud environments to continuously monitor network paths and application performance across the internal and third-party networks. And these tests allow you to monitor everything in real time. So some of the specific tests that we run here are network layer tests, so agent to server or agent to network, web layer tests, think HTTP server, page load or transaction tests, and DNS layer tests. And again, Lance will touch on these a little bit as we go on and dive into that nitty gritty. So I would say these three use cases are really the bread and butter of ThousandEyes. This is what we see a lot, but there is one use case that I think is so relevant in our conversation today, and that's really how ThousandEyes can help with your AI readiness. I know I would be remiss if I didn't mention AI in this conversation. I'm sure everyone listening has had a conversation probably in the past year or so about what your AI looks like in your organization, how you can optimize AI for revenue growth, right? I wish I could unmute you guys and ask, but I'm sure everyone has had that conversation. And the way you actually roll out AI, the way your team interacts with AI, and how this data is translated can be looked at in a very similar way to how data flows through your traditional network. As a newer product, a newer service here, AI adoption actually increases that operational complexity and expands that attack surface, right? So ThousandEyes offers actually a common operating language and unified visibility that breaks down these silos between network, security, and application teams. And this approach just streamlines workflow, reduces noise, and enables some of that faster decision making. With AI agents multiplying per user and all these new AI-driven use cases emerging, network traffic and security risks really are just continuing to grow. And so ThousandEyes can really help future-proof your network by delivering that continuous, comprehensive monitoring across all of your environments. So on-prem, cloud, and internet, to just really help you scale your AI and help with that strategy as you continue to grow. So ThousandEyes really is not just a monitoring tool, as we've seen kind of in some of those traditional use cases, but it can be a strategic enabler for AI readiness and resilience. It provides that visibility, intelligence, and automation that network engineers just need to support AI workloads.
Well,
So this
and
is
all
something that,
teams.
oh,
That's like in all teams, like the
Yeah,
first part is actually seeing it, and then the security teams, the compute team, the network teams, they can all do with that. But the first part is like visibility.
100%. 100%. And yeah, especially as everyone is rolling this out, right? This is kind of a newer strategy, newer technology for all of these teams. So it's important to understand what is happening when this is deployed. You know, why are there issues going on? So this is just something to think about as all of you guys are growing in your AI readiness. So this is the last slide I have here, but this is just kind of goes over what is the benefit of ThousandEyes? What is it bringing you as a customer? The first is the enhanced insights. So as I talked about, you can visualize that network traffic path through the internet for faster troubleshooting, resolution, and again, across those networks that you own that are in your environment and through the internet to environments that you don't own. The second is proactive monitoring. So detecting and remediating issues before they become a big problem in your environment. And the main thing here is we see a lot of customers talking about they don't want to be just reactive in their environment and they really want to be proactive. ThousandEyes can absolutely take you there. The third is streamlined deployment. So all of these agents actually, if you are a Meraki customer, which we can talk about those integrations further down the line, from your Meraki dashboard, you're able to manage these alerts. So ThousandEyes actually supports the automation and integration with a lot of tools such as ServiceNow, Slack, Splunk, just enabling some of that alerting and visibility. So it really just accelerates the operational efficiency across your entire environment. So that's what I have for you guys today. Now I'll pass it to Lance. I know he has a couple slides as well, and he's going to dive into a little bit more of what this dashboard looks like in practice and what you would see if you were to log into ThousandEyes and look at some of that data. So Lance, take it away.
All right, appreciate it. Quick sound check. Everyone hears me?
You're
Fine.
good.
All right. So I'm going to change things up a little bit. um, like I mentioned to the team a few minutes ago,
Literally a few minutes ago.
literally a few minutes ago, my original plan is not the plan that I'm going to go with. It's like no pun intended. It's like snowflakes. Every snowflake is different, and since I was the beneficiary of a lot of snow this past week, I'm going to take that into account. So, um, obviously, being snowed in, I was watched a lot of TV, watching a lot of like Sports Center, and hearing a lot of talk about like keys to a winning season and key plays and things that teams need to do differently. And so I figured I'd take that sports analogy and apply it to my presentation and literally came up with this stuff on the cuff. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to adjust. So I present to you my Thousand Eyes keys to a winning season. All right. Hopefully this goes over well. If it's corny, I apologize. Number one, know your personnel. So I'm going to jump back and forth between the presentation here and my demo org. But key number one is knowing your personnel. So Renee talked about like the different vantage points that we have, and with the cloud agents and the enterprise agents and the endpoint agents. But specifically here, like I'm talking about endpoint experience, and being snowed in this weekend, being hybrid. And then a big one that I'm hearing a lot is like contact center, understanding and knowing where your personnel are located, what their experience is like, and getting visibility into that, I'll say last mile, right? Each of the Thousand Eyes vantage points provides what I like to say is a different perspective. And one of the key things that I think comes into play, it started, what, 5, 6 years ago with COVID, is as organizations are now in this hybrid world, you've gone from 20 remote offices to as many remote offices as you have employees. So if you have 500 employees, you now have 500 remote offices that you're now troubleshooting. Add to the fact that a lot of our staff and organizations are consistently mobile, right? My team was in Austin this past week at an offsite. Some were on the road. Like you have executives that are constantly traveling. And again, coming back to the contact center, those are not just in your headquarter locations. These are located across the country and even around the world. we need to be able to provide insight and visibility into their performance and understand from their perspective how things are performing. And that's what Thousand Eyes does. So, how do we understand your personnel? With these different endpoint agents, we get to test things like their application availability. We get to test things like response. So, this graph here is just showing end user application availability to all the major and critical applications, whether it's their contact center application or even productivity applications. I get to see like where everyone is located, who's online, who's not, I'm not going to say performing well, but basically who I can get access to. But it gives me this insight into things like CPU load, wireless information, how the user is connecting, right? And I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at the team from a holistic perspective, how the team is performing. But if I have single users, if I have a user that is having a specific issue, I can either click on that user here and focus on them, or I can go into what we call agent views, which gives me the data to look at a single person and look at their performance. So if Jason, as an example, is saying, hey, I'm having issues, I can now just pull up Jason's information. I have historical data, game film, on how Jason's been performing, right? But I can also get specifics around his connection, his system. I can get some segment visualization data for particular applications and services. So I can always see how he's connected. Here he's going through a wireless network. I can look at this over a specific time frame. So if I want to say, Jason's had a problem over the last 12 hours, I can see what that, or I can go to that particular time frame and drill in. But it just essentially gives me that insight into his performance, not just at that time, but also over time, historical. A lot of times we know that when users report issues, it's not that they're having it at that time. They'll say, hey, I had this issue 3 hours ago, or I had that same issue yesterday. Being able to go back into this in the solution, pull up their specific information, see how they're accessing applications, see whether they're on Wi-Fi, whether they're hardwired. Renee and I have had examples of people are tethering through their phone. They're in, like she mentioned, Starbucks. Getting that insight into the performance from their view, from their perspective, is key for part one of your winning season. So that endpoint experience provides this data holistically from that end user's perspective. And one of the things that Renee talked about is the ability to look at things through what we call a dynamic test. So whether they're on Teams or whether they're on WebEx, we have the ability to look at the connections and how they're getting from their system, how they're connected to this webinar, how they're connected to the Teams meeting, how they're maybe connected to a Zoom call, and understanding the different silos, whether there's issues within that destination network, whether it's within their local network, their Wi-Fi, their access, or whether it's through their transit network, right? And so we're able to see that service delivery path and provide insight around it. So that's number one, knowing your personnel, understanding their connectivity, understanding their views, and understanding how they're getting access to different applications. All right, kind of just gave it away. Yep. Question?
Something I've heard from a lot of my customers, specifically on having that endpoint visibility, is from the person that reports the issue's perspective, they now have an understanding of what the problem is, and their experience interacting with the customer's help desk or just the IT staff is so much better because now they know, hey, that connection at Starbucks is not great. Maybe I need to go to this other location, or maybe I need to move my router in my home.
Correct.
So that experience from the employee perspective is 10 times better and 10 times faster, of course, for the IT team.
Correct. That's a great point. Thanks, Josh. All right, key play number two, after you know your personnel. Number two, everyone has a role. All right, so taking like a NFL team as an example, everyone plays a different role. There are a ton of different dependencies and roles that you have to play, right? You've got the scout team, you've got the quarterback coach, you've got the defensive line coach. Everyone plays a role in order for you to have a successful season, right? The same thing happens in our job. Same thing with applications and services. Same thing with the networking and the engineering teams. Everyone plays a role. Hopefully, I just saw a note that I cut out for a second. Hopefully, I'm okay
You're
that
good.
everyone can hear. Yep. So I saw this picture on Reddit. For those of you that attended the Philly Connect event, I also presented this picture. I think it's hilarious. It came out right after we had, what is it, the back-to-back outages from AWS and Cloudflare and Azure saying, "Hey, hold my beer, don't leave me out the mix. Let me get into this as well." So I look at this as like the game Jenga, where we've got this style, this pile of blocks, and everyone is trying to tap a piece out and put it back on, and it could start to lean, but then you don't know when it's going to lean. My point here is everyone plays a role, and once traffic leaves your environment, uh, it could get ugly, right? So, but it's nice to be able to know where these dependencies are, because if this falls, this is what happens, right? So these are all outages that have occurred over the last couple of months, and you guys are probably familiar with them. There's AWS and Azure, and I'm just going to click on one of them to bring you into my point here. With ThousandEyes, as I mentioned earlier, and Renee mentioned, we have these different vantage points, which provides different perspectives. Cloud Agent is from the perspective of outside, like outside in, right? So they provide a role of seeing that outside in type monitoring. Enterprise agents are within your organization's infrastructure. That's more like an inside out perspective, right? From your location out to a service, right? Endpoint agents we just talked about, that's the individual workforce, right? But there's a component here called Internet Insights. And what Internet Insights does is it provides both a macro and micro view of internet outages. So if you think of it, my weak sports analogy, it's the view that we're going to get from the press box, right? It's that high level overview where, and actually it could be like the scout team during the week that's looking at what the weather is going to be like, whether anybody in that region is going to have issues. That's what Internet Insights is providing, right? It is that high level macro and micro view of internet outages. So how does this apply and play in with your organization? As I mentioned earlier, we had AWS, we had Cloudflare, we had Azure. You want to know if those outages have an impact on you. Are they going to impact your game plan week to week? And what ThousandEyes does is it takes a view kind of similar to like a Google Maps or Waze, where when everyone reports issues, like we aggregate that data and look to see where there's commonalities. Some of you may immediately think of like Down Detector. The difference between Internet Insights and Down Detector is twofold. Number one, with Down Detector, it relies on you as the user to go and report that you're having a problem. With ThousandEyes Internet Insights, what you're doing is the ThousandEyes is testing to and through these resources. So we're looking at test data, we're anonymizing the test data, and that gives us the ability to say, hey, 3 hours ago, there was an Amazon issue, a Microsoft Online issue in this region. A few hours ago, there was Cloudflare, no pun intended, as this lines up perfectly, had an issue in the Texas region. Now, if you have contact centers, users, locations, offices, even tests that run through these regions, what ThousandEyes does is it will automatically map those tests and correlate the data for you to let you know, hey, the reason why you can't get access to this service is because we detected an outage in Cloudflare that has a direct impact on your organization. So Internet Insights gives you, again, both that high level, think from the press box, macro and micro view of internet outages and the direct impact it has on your services. All right. So that's number two right there is, I'm giving away my secrets here. Everyone has a role. Number three,
Lance,
yep, question.
quick note on that. If you ever do wonder what's going on with these outages that happen, ThousandEyes is actually pretty quick at posting it. So
That's
if
a
you
great
give it like
point.
if you give it a day or two and go to their blog, you can go in there and it'll save the snapshot just as Lance was showing you. And you can go in there and you can kind of poke around and stuff. And it's actually kind of a fun way to get used to ThousandEyes. But go ahead, Lance.
That is correct. That's a great point. So these screenshots here are coming from our blog. You see outage analysis. We even have an internet report that we publish to our webpage that reviews each of that outage analysis. So we'll actually tell you, hey, in this AWS outage, This is what we detected in ThousandEyes. Now, obviously, like it has to be, within reach, I'll say reason for us to detect the outage. But yeah, we do a great way of analyzing the data, providing that to our customers. And a lot of times we get asked from industry experts, like the news will contact us and ask us for our opinion on what's going on within the region. The second point I want to just jump on that Eric mentioned, which I think is great, is you guys see, like I clicked on one of these and it brought me to, it popped up a link in the product. Pro tip here, for those of you that are using ThousandEyes, we have this concept of share links. And what a share link does is it's basically a snapshot. So I can create these snapshots of data that I can either embed in tickets, provide to my management, provide to vendors, provide to customers. And it's basically a snapshot around a specific time frame. They're read only, they're collaborative. I can look at this and drill down as if I'm logged into the product, but I'm actually not. And it just gives me the way to see that, hey, that Jenga puzzle is starting to tip. So here's the degradation that we're seeing here. And that's what we captured in ThousandEyes. And again, you have that data saved within your platform.
So if you're looking for a date night, it is Friday. You can show your wife or partner some ThousandEyes insights.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's gonna fly, but
But I will say though, I have showed this to my kids that come to me saying they can't get on PlayStation, and I will show a share link because I'm tired of them saying it's the network, and I take offense to them blaming my network or being the reason that they don't have access to it. So we'll go from there. Number 3, let's go back. So number 3, you can kind of see it.
Key number 3, effective game plans. All right, so here I'm going to jump into the product a bit. So let me go to my other one here. So effective game planning. So Renee talked about like the reactive and proactive, and I think where a lot of organizations miss the mark, and it's not, doesn't have anything to do with it's just my perspective from the outside, right? Like, I'm from the outside in. I think where a lot of organizations that may have ThousandEyes or look at ThousandEyes is from a reactive perspective, right? And so, and I get it. That's the nature of the business. There's a problem. We're having a problem. We need something to help solve that problem. And we're great in that aspect. But there's an additional piece to ThousandEyes that I think a lot of customers, and we're seeing a lot of shift, and we've seen a lot of shift in this, shift with this as well, is as you begin to go through this digital transformation, as you are migrating to the cloud, as you're moving services, as you're going to SD-WAN, right? Leverage ThousandEyes to help become that proactive piece that allows you to see what things are going to be like, right? So from the endpoint side, like I talk to my customers a lot about setting expectation. Hey, Renee, just picking on you because you're here. You can't get the same performance that you're going to get in the office that when you're on Amtrak, right? It's just something that's not going to happen. As we are now moving an application that used to be on-prem and we're closing that data center, we're moving to the cloud, we can run tests from ThousandEyes to that cloud application from different services, from different locations, from different agents. Maybe we've got some MXs that are in our offices at different locations. We can deploy a ThousandEyes agent on an MX very fast, right? Spin up a test and have that test run to these new services that we're going to access and just get an idea and a feel for performance. So there's various test types that we have within ThousandEyes. I know Renee touched on a few of them, but there's everything from detailed transaction tests where I can actually simulate the user journey or emulate the user journey. I can have a loading the page. You can see here a sign in, viewing pricing, running a report, viewing orders, signing out. Take that, play that as a test, and run that test from my different vantage points. And what that's going to do is, as part of our multi-layer approach, it's going to allow me to see what the different transaction times are. It's going to give me the ability to see things in a waterfall diagram so I can get a breakdown of all the different components. I can see, hey, JavaScripts are going to come from Amazon, right? Because we're hosting this in AWS. So these are all JavaScripts that are running. I don't necessarily have to know what these scripts are doing. I just know how long they typically would take in relation to my overall response. The key there is if ThousandEyes does detect an anomaly, hey, this 4210 JavaScript is now taking 10 seconds as opposed to 500 milliseconds, I can get alerted to that, right? I can know that there's an issue that's happening within the application. So we can run tests at the transaction layer. We can get into things like screenshots and, trying to understand the process that the user takes. But the key thing with ThousandEyes, as Renee mentioned, is this multi-layer approach. So it's not just understanding application, it's also understanding this is how we're going to get to that data. This is the path that we're going to take. These are our access nodes. These are DIA. This is broadband. Like, this is how we're getting to AWS so that we can get to that application. And you can see the green circles on the left are going to represent the agents where I'm running the test from. Everything else in the middle is transit. So these are nodes that are within Comcast network in Ashburn. This is a node here that's within Comcast network as well, within Hayward, California. And you can see that there's detailed information. We like to call it actionable information for each one of the nodes. Where you're located, what network are you in, and even, hey, there's a DSCP change here, right? So the ability to very quickly highlight, hey, there's a change, a QoS change, or this node is in Hayward, or this is where we enter into AWS's front door, right? This is where we get to that global accelerator. That is key for us. This service delivery path is part of every single part of our product. It doesn't matter if it's the endpoint agent, doesn't matter if it's the enterprise or the cloud agent. The ability to see the path that you're taking, where those nodes are located, yep, and then how you're getting there, and then if there's any changes, right, is going to be a key aspect for it. We provide network metrics for every single one of these, but it is that service delivery path information that gets correlated to the upper layers that really gives you that information that you need to see for your effective game plan. All right.
So I had a question around this. Some of my customers are going through M&As, and then even some of them are then going through divestitures right after that. For me, I think it makes sense proactively. ThousandEyes would be a great tool in that type of scenario. Is that something that you see regularly, or?
Absolutely. Yep. So if in either case of an M&A or a divestiture, it is providing that understanding, right? So think from an M&A perspective, right? So now you're adding additional locations, adding additional offices. You want to, and now you're bringing them into your environment. So you want to understand like performance from those locations, how you're getting there, how you can access. And this service delivery path is not just internet, right? It's also within your environment. So I'm showing an example of internet, but think about like, when you first acquire a company, you may want this site-to-site communication and understand that. There may be multiple paths from a location, right? You may have, secondary paths that you want to see if you're getting the bang for your buck with that path, right? So being able to understand performance from those new locations, and even if you can't put an agent there, we have cloud agents all over the world, all over the country. You can leverage a cloud agent from that region, from that area, and still run tests to your applications. You just need a target. You just need something to test to. As long as you can do that, you get a feel for what the expected performance would be like.
I still definitely encourage to have that agent there because you actually get to use it as that QA. Like, oh, this is what they have right now. This is what it is. And this is what it would take for them to be able to access our resources. And then you can take that a step further. And then once you do integrate them and you integrate them into your SD-WAN, maybe they weren't using SD-WAN before, you can really see that improvement and see that success.
Correct. And let me give you guys just a quick pro tip for those ThousandEyes users that are out there. You are not limited to running a test from one agent. So we talked about cloud, enterprise, and endpoint. You can run tests from all three, right? You can run a test from a single one. You can run a test from 2 out of 3. The reason why you may want to run from multiple agents is, let's say you're running to 365, Office 365, and you're running a test from the enterprise agent out to your 365 instance. I would also run a test from that cloud agent to 365. And here's the reason why. I want to know if I can get to that service, but if I can't get to that service, if my enterprise agent is down, can I still get to it from my area, from that region, from that cloud agent? If I can't get to it from either, Internet Insights, Pressbox says, hey, no, there's a Microsoft 365 issue. This is why you're having a problem in that region. But it's a way to compare, is it just me? It's not me, it's you. Is it just me? Or is it, between multiple regions or agents within an area? So real quick pro tip for you guys. All right, so we're running through the game plan. So I'm sorry, the keys here. So we know our personnel, everyone has a role, effective game plans, using analytics. So for deeper visibility. Now, I know you guys may say that sounds like a networking term. That's not really, a game plan for a key for a winning season. But if you notice, like a lot of teams, Oakland A's started it, we're using analytics and metrics and really breaking down, like, in basketball, it's, no, you very rarely see like a layup with a fast break. You'll see like a 3-point shot, right? So it's because of percentages. And so a lot of teams are getting into like this analytics and getting deeper visibility into their player and knowing their personnel and knowing where they effectively shoot better from the floor or whether they, run better inside the A gap, right? It's all these different things that they're analyzing. How does that play with ThousandEyes? So when I say get deeper visibility, I'm talking about going from this service delivery path and not just being satisfied that you can get to the front door of AWS, but now I want to go beyond it. I want to see, as I enter into AWS's network, what's going on with my cloud architecture. So a lot of people are pushing workloads into AWS, into Azure, into other cloud infrastructures, but then they become blind. They lose that visibility. And that's actually how things used to be with the internet until ThousandEyes came along. You would just leave, the data would leave your four walls, it would go out into the ether, and then hopefully it gets to the other end, right? But then this service delivery path is actually showing this is the path that we're taking through the internet to get to that destination. With Cloud Insights, now we're saying, actually, we can get you past that AWS front door. We're going to show you for your application that you're moving to the cloud, how you're getting from this global accelerator to your actual EC2 instance. So in this example right here, you see the dotted lines and the question mark. It's kind of unknown. But now with Cloud Insights, we take it a step further. So we actually say this piece right here is the outside cloud. That was all those other nodes that I just previously showed. But now this is the path that you're taking within your cloud architecture to get to the destination. This is the global accelerator. That was the big node that we saw there. Everything else here, previously we represented as that dotted line and the question mark, like, hey, I don't know, but you hit the global accelerator and you get to your EC2 instance. We have no other information as to how you get there, but now we do. Now for AWS, now for Azure, those are the two that we have support for right now. We're going to show you everything from the application load balancers. We're going to show you the endpoint groups. I'm just going to hover over a bunch of these here. We're going to show you everything that it takes to get to the destination. We can look at configuration details. So I can actually, go to Cloud Insights and pull up inventory. I can actually get inventory information from my cloud infrastructure, different resource types from load balancers to global accelerators to, load balancer listeners. I can have it detect when there's operational changes, right? So I can see if there's an operational change in play. I can see if there's a configuration change that's in play. So there's a configuration change here that happened on the load balancer. I can pull it up and it'll actually give me a side-by-side comparison of the configuration and actually show me, hey, there was a change here in the security group. So now that's deeper insight, deeper analytics, deeper visibility into cloud architectures. And in the past, when the network team would get, I'll say, blamed because the user couldn't get access to something that's in the cloud, you didn't have insight into it because it was a black box, right? But now with ThousandEyes, we're looking at not only inventory data, but we also have the ability to view traffic information within the cloud architecture as well. So we can pull in VPC and VNet flow logs, correlate that data with our actual testing. So when you look at information, from your test, I'll have to go back to a specific test, I get to see if the change in that configuration actually had an impact on the performance of my application, right? Now, this one is clean, everything's good, I'm not seeing anything, Here I see a couple of nodes, but that's more from the transaction side. But there would be a correlation between that application data, the network data, and now the cloud architecture data, all in this multi-layer view. So I can actually determine, no, it's not an issue with the network. It's because there was a change in the security group, and now our response times have increased. Cloud insights, deeper analytics, more extended visibility.
And the reality is, we're always brought in last. It's always like, hey, this doesn't work. And it's like, wait, time's up.
Exactly.
All right. So I know we're coming up on time. I'm going to wrap it up with this last one. Know your personnel. Everyone has a role. Have effective game plans. Use analytics for deeper visibility. And the last one I'm going to say is embrace the rookie, right? It's the new one on the team, doesn't really know its way around. Some people are kind of scared to, they're highly touted. Maybe they're a high draft pick, but you got to embrace the rookie. And specifically, because I know Renee, she came to me and she was like, we got to talk about AI. And I said, perfect. We'll bring up AI.
Philly.
We'll talk about Allen Iverson. We'll talk about the cross on Michael Jordan.
I'm all excited to talk about AI, but she really wanted to talk about this AI. So I was a little
disappointed there. Yeah, Marcus, I got you. Talk about practice. But it's more so like we're talking about prompts. Prompts, you want to talk about prompts?
That's hilarious.
So what does ThousandEyes do
with AI? And I know that there's a lot here, but I actually set up a test to Anthropic, right? Because as Renee showed in her picture, there's a lot of dependencies. Go back to my chart with that's leaning. AI has even more dependencies, and it's not only just the network. It's also, once you hit the LLM server, there's API calls that take place, right, to go to external services. It's delivering the content to you. And while from a network perspective, you may just say, hey, it's not coming down to us. It really is, right? Because, organizations will upgrade an application and the network team is the last one to find out. You're just reactive, right? You have to approach to it. There was a migration to cloud, you're the last one to find out. Again, you're reactive, right? So approach to it. There's more than likely, and I've talked to at least 2 businesses and organizations that have AI initiatives going on, that the network team is not aware of it. And you're still going to have to react to it, right? And so what this does do is it gives you foray into that world, being able to see like, hey, we can get to that LLM server, right? It doesn't matter if it's Chat GPT or OpenAI or Claude or Copilot or Gemini. We can get there, but while we're getting there, we can run this API test. And for example, this test was, actually, I'll show you guys. So this was a test I ran to the Anthropic API. It actually tells me information around, the body and the text. So I'm querying, I'm asking a question to test that API, and the question is, when did Cisco acquire ThousandEyes? So that prompt, that request is in my response, right? It's in my request, right? In which month and year did Cisco acquire ThousandEyes? The response now comes back, Cisco acquired ThousandEyes in August 2020. Nope, the acquisition was announced in May 2020. So I'm getting that response back. I'm looking to see how long that API call took, right? So here's my initial request. Here's more information on the processing time. You see the breakdown of how long it took. I'm waiting for a response. That took 2 seconds. I'm receiving the data, right? How long all of that took in the interaction. I'm getting that multi-layer approach. I'm seeing the connection to that API, to that LLM server. And oh, by the way, if I do get messages like this one I got here, which was a 529 provider infrastructure issue, that's what I labeled it as, it's because we ran out of capacity on that particular server. So as you guys may not know, like API leverages tokens. The tokens basically are filled based on your request, and your messaging. This actually is telling me that in this particular case, that the reason why I didn't get that response was because I ran out of capacity. My point here is API. AI is the new kid on the block, right? Organizations are moving to it. I think I saw an article that for Bank of New York Mellon, 98% of their employees were involved in API testing and API adoption within their organization. It's here. ThousandEyes helps with not just leveraging it ourselves with our assistant. I didn't even get to that portion, but just monitoring the different LLMs, emulating API calls, providing that multi-layer approach, and just understanding capabilities and how it could impact network services. All right. So embrace the rookie, embrace the new kid on the block. I think we've got 8 minutes left. I have finished my keys to the winning season. I will turn it back over to you guys for any questions or additional info.
So just real quick, I will add that Cisco does include ThousandEyes entitlement with Cisco DNA Advantage licensing. So I would recommend working with your Cisco account teams to confirm which entitlements you have and then how to best deploy them in your environment. Just throw that.
And that brings up actually a really good point. We moved fast. We kind of did that because it's easy to go really deep on something, but we wanted to just kind of show you the power of ThousandEyes. And that if at any point any of these things was like, hey, this would be great for our organization, do reach out, let us know. Another topic that we're thinking about, I think we're going to need a little bit more time, and maybe it's going to be a series on the AI front, is like how to protect AI, because there's just so many different ways to do that, and at so many different products, different architectures, different enforcement points, as you saw with the ThousandEyes agent. So be on the lookout for that. Josh, did you have anything?
No, nothing specific. I was going to echo, AI is a huge topic. I think we've used it about 6 times on this call so far. So we filled out the bingo card. But like Eric said, it's something that we're seeing a lot of need around for organizations to protect their data at the end of the day. So keep an eye out, like Eric said, for any additional webinars around that topic. Our next TAP session will be February 27th at 11 a.m. We'll send out information regarding that next week. But certainly, again, here's the QR code for the Metro Philly Select website. Please take a look at it, sign up for our mailing list so you can stay up to date. And we really appreciate everybody hopping on this morning.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add.
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add one more quick comment. If any of this obviously also resonated with you guys, Lance and I would be happy to do one-on-one with you and your team, deep dive, and just go over your environment specifically. Because again, we want this to be as beneficial as possible for you. So we're happy to chat offline if there are any other questions.
And before we end the session, if y'all do have another suggestion on a TAP topic, please let us know and just put it in the chat. Tell your account team, make a comment on YouTube. Do remember, this will be posted on YouTube and it will be posted on our Metro Philly Select website as well. So if you need some screenshots, whatever you need, just know it's there. But if you have a suggestion, please let us know.
And I miss Lance's version of AI. The Sixers could really use him right now.
And Lance, fantastic job for
Yeah,
changing everything right at the last minute.
That's how you do
Go with your
things on
gut.
the fly.
Cool. Leave it open for a little bit longer. Josh, you can stop the recording. If you have any questions, go ahead. If not,